all attending. And would you please lead us, Nancy, in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Daly. Let's go around the table and introduce ourselves, your name and which MPO you represent. Once we finish with the introductions, Ms. Smith, then you can confirm whether we have a quorum present. Should we start with Mr. Sayosi? Welcome.
Yeah, space, so 5 minutes.
Good
morning.
Good morning, Virginia Whittington, Metro Plan Orlando. And just a reminder, if you are speaking, please touch the little speaker man in the middle, the button there, and that'll activate your microphone.
Good morning. My name is Olga Lucia Castaño. I'm the Vice Mayor for the City of Kissimmee.
Good morning, Gary Hatman, Metro Plan Orlando.
Rob Almus, Ocala Marion County TPO.
Ira Bethea, Ocala Marion County TPO, City Councilman of Ocala.
Good morning, Ryan Kordick with the Polk TPO staff.
And Polk TPO.
Brian Yates, City of Winter Haven, Polk TPO.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. And Ms. Smith, do we give you enough time to confirm if we have a quorum?
Currently, Madam Chair, we do not have a quorum present.
And how short are we?
We are short by 2 members.
Okay. Well, the good news is all we have is minutes, so we can certainly continue on. All right, now it's time for public comment on action items. And this is the first of 2 opportunities for public comments. Public comments are on action items, which are heard before the action is taken at the beginning of the meeting, and comments that are of a more general nature will be heard near the end. Comments may be made in person or online by those joining us via Zoom, and people wishing to comment on these items in person must complete a speaker's introduction card. Each speaker is limited to 2 minutes. Members of the public joining us virtually who wish to speak can use the raise hand feature on the Zoom screen. And if you're attending by phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. And when you're called, staff will unmute your microphone and will ask you to state your name and contact information for the record. That was a mouthful. Do we have anyone who would like to speak, Ms. Smith?
I have not received any requests.
Okay. All right. Lisa, is there anyone from the public here in person who would like to speak?
No.
All right.
And Madam Chair, if we can just confirm, Kathy, do we have anyone online who wanted to speak?
There are no hands raised on the attendee side.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So with that, next, there were delegation reports for you providing information. And unless someone has a question for one of the reports, they'll just be recorded in your minutes. Do we have any questions for Lake Sumter Metro Plan? Ocala, Marion, very good. One more and we'll have our quorum. Polk, Space Coast, and River to Sea. Do we have any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll continue on. Up next are FDOT reports. And we'll start first with Kyle Purvis from District 1.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Good.
For District 1, our report, we have a couple planning feasibility studies going on. We have a Northwest Polk County study. That's in the traffic analysis phase of things. We also have a trade port ACE study going on. That's just wrapping up the traffic analysis side of things. We'll be having some public visioning meetings coming up. That's the next step. Also, we'll be sending out invitations next week for a speed management workshop for Polk County. We had one previously and it was geared toward more toward FDOT staff and county staff. This one's going to be geared more towards government officials, MPOs, TPOs, people along those lines. So if you would like to attend and you don't get an invitation next week, you can contact me at FDOT or anybody in D1, Nicole Mills, Bessie Reyna, Kyle Purvis. We can get you on that, or any of your staff that you would like to attend. Also, we have the T-car study. We're evaluating extending Sunrail into Polk County. We've looked at some preliminary alternatives, and we're planning to present that to the TAC later this month, and also have some public workshops on those alternatives. Then obviously we're keeping an eye on moving Florida forward with the two projects in Polk County at State Road 33 and I-4 from US 27 to Osceola. Other than that, that's pretty much it from an update.
Thank you, Colin. You talked about a speed study for the elected officials and the staff. So I'm assuming you're telling us all to slow down a little bit, huh? All right. Next up for District 5, Lorraine Bobo.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for having us. Director Adkins apologizes for not being able to be here. No, he was at least double booked, possibly triple booked. So he asked if I would attend in his place. I am the safety administrator for District 5. What I'd like to start with is asking Anna Taylor to introduce her team. New folks on board.
Good morning, Anna Taylor from the District 5 Planning Office. We're really excited that the MPO liaison unit is finally staffed. A lot of your directors will know that this has been a priority of mine for quite some time. We are going to be going back to the old system where we have our liaisons directly assigned to each of your boards in hopes of better supporting you as a member, but also your staff. Rakenia Henson has been with us for quite some time. She's going to be the liaison for Ocala Marion and the River to Sea TPO. Yesenia Encarcion, I'm gonna get that. She started with us just a few weeks ago. She's going to be helping with Lake Sumter and Space Coast. And John Scarf is joining us at the beginning of this year. He is our MetroPlan Orlando liaison. So they are faces that you will see at your meetings, and they will be your resources as we move forward. So I just want to say, make them feel welcome, and they can be the new faces that you go to. I'll still be around though, if you need anything.
Thanks, Anna. Kyle did touch on moving Florida forward. The governor announced in January $4 billion that would be leveraged to $7 billion to cover 20 projects around the state. It is moving through the legislature, but it's currently only at $2 billion and does not involve include some of the policy changes that need to be made and the redirection of the license fees and license plate and rental car fees that previously we would use to leverage. So we're very hopeful that we get back to the $4 billion so that we can make all of those very important, impactful projects happen. I'm sure some of our Polk County folks had to endure some of the Osceola County I-4 traffic, and I'm sure that they have your vote for getting the $4 billion allocated. And those projects would be on top of our existing work program. So those are, it's not instead of, it's on top of. So there will be a lot of work going on, but it's long overdue that we get that work done. So we're hopeful. A little bit about our work program. Just a reminder that, as our resurfacing projects come along, we're going to be engaging folks like yourselves and your communities as early as possible to make sure that we're incorporating as many safety enhancements and making sure that those projects are what the community wants. Keeping in mind that we still have budgets. If we didn't have a budget, we'd be doing all the things. And as safety administrator, that is very near and dear to my heart, that we're doing everything that we can to make the roads as safe as possible for everybody using them so that they do get home every single night. That's my number one goal. Just wanted to mention, since I do get the opportunity, we have a Safety Central newsletter that comes out quarterly. Hopefully some of the folks in District 5 externally have received that. Our 4th edition will be coming out here at the end of the month. And the goal of that newsletter is to not only share the things that the department is doing from a safety standpoint, but what all of our partners are doing as well. And really just continue that collaboration, because we're all doing great things, but if we're doing them all together, we're gonna be able to be even more impactful. I do like to share a safety second, because it takes just a second to be safe. April is National Distracted Driving Month. And it is estimated across the state that there are more than 1,000 distracted driving crashes every week. And that's using your phone, changing the dial, not really paying attention, anything that's taking you away from driving. That's the only thing that you should be doing when you're driving. I wanted to mention that at 55 miles per hour, sending or reading a text is like driving the length of a football field with your eyes closed. So think about how much ground you're covering when you take your eyes off the road for just that second. And could be a close call, or it could be a crash that takes your life or somebody else's. So one thing that we do when we're driving in a car is we kind of keep each other accountable. If my husband's phone dings and he goes to look at it, I'm like, let me look at it for you. Let me send that text for you. And my boys remind me when I touch my phone, it's usually because we're sitting at a stoplight, but I have to remember that I'm teaching them, right, to not touch their phones. And so I appreciate when they give me that gentle reminder. So I hope to see all of you again soon. So please don't drive distracted. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lorraine. Do we have any questions for any of these three?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that Lorraine did not mention that she's about to celebrate her 2nd birthday as a safety office coming up in June, and remind everybody that she started that position with nothing and has really done an incredible job. So
She has, and there's a lot of work in my district as well that we're appreciative on 436. Thank you for your work on that. Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen, for making the meeting. We have a quorum now. Is that correct? Oh, did I forget? I forgot Mr. C. Oh, I forgot the turnpike.
You started with them, but.
Yeah, that's because I called you earlier. I'm so sorry.
Good morning, Alliance members. I have one quick update. So the Florida Turnpike Enterprise will be hosting a public hearing for the Poinciana Parkway Extension Connector. So this project's included as one of the 20 projects in the Moving Florida Forward funding proposal. So on April 25th, the virtual public hearing session will begin at 5:30 p.m. And on April 27th, the in-person public hearing session will be held at the Advent Health Nicholson Center in Celebration. And that will also be at 5:30 p.m. So registration for both of these events can be completed on the floridasturnpike.com. But with that being said, that is the end of my report.
Okay, any questions for COC? All right, seeing none, now we can go to the minutes. All right, there's only this one action item before us today, and it's the minutes from the previous meeting. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval.
So
Second.
Okay, so it's
So-
Commissioner Buffet, the motioner, and I think it was Mayor.
No, I pushed my button.
Oh, you
because I
did,
had
okay, all right.
An amendment.
Commissioner Esta, the second. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion carries and it's unanimous. All right, and I know we all look forward to these meetings. It's the information and the things that are shared with us today. And first up, we have Georgiana Gillette with Space Coast TPO, and she will be reviewing the new funding for the regional project prioritization list. And welcome, Georgiana.
And Madam Chair, as Georgiana is getting set up there, I just wanted to call attention to presentation item C. The presentation will be just a presentation, and then any follow-up questions, we are removing the roundtable discussion portion of that. So I just wanted to call that to your attention before we get there. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Alliance members. It's good to be with you today to talk about the update of the regional list of project priorities. So if you recall at the February meeting, we officially kicked off the priority process via a short presentation. Excuse me, but behind the scenes, excuse me, we have been working, doing our call for projects and just reviewing the information that we have on the list. And just as a reminder, here in Central Florida, the MPOs work through the Central Florida MPO Alliance to collectively develop regional transportation priorities that also assist FDOT District 5 in programming projects that are considered regional in nature. And this activity that we do each year is guided by a process to provide clear support to FDOT regarding the collective priorities for the region. And also a reminder, the categories are the strategic intermodal system, regional trails, generally the Sun Trail system, regional transit projects, and TRIP, the Transportation Regional Incentive Program that was created to improve regionally significant facilities. So on tab 3 of your agenda, it shows the list of the regional projects, which was adopted by the Alliance last October. And we will be working from this list as we review the funding and update projects as needed. So we are at the very early stage of review. So everyone has kind of mentioned the moving Florida forward, but it is something as we develop our regional list, it's something to consider. If approved by the legislature, the Central Florida region will receive significant funding for infrastructure that otherwise could not have been built for 10, 15, 20 years. And this would be a tremendous help to our regional list. And so as Lorraine mentioned, we are hopeful. Even though the Space Coast did not get a project, we understand how critical these projects are. And if we start knocking off some of these major projects, potentially it could free up money down the road. So just to touch on a few of those projects that are so important. For Metro Plan Orlando, I-4 from Champions Gate to Osceola Parkway, with construction being proposed in 2024. And then, of course, the Point Siena Parkway Extension Connector from County Road 532 to State Road 429 with construction in 2027. And so these are two major projects that we're very hopeful will get the funding. For the Polk TPO, it was mentioned I-4 at State Road 33 interchange and I-4 at US 27 or from US 27 to Champions Gate. The interchange with construction proposed in 2024 and the I-4 widening construction in 2027. Very critical projects. So the I-75 auxiliary lanes from State Road 44 to State Road 326 in Marion and Sumter County are short-term improvements from the ongoing master plan with construction proposed in 2025, and it includes interchange modifications and right-of-way acquisition for the future widening. And so this is a very important project, a lot of bang for the buck for short-term improvements. And then the Ocala Marion TPO also received funding from the state's Job Growth Grant Fund to assist in project delivery for I-75 interchange at Northwest 49th Street. And also the 4-laning of State Road 40 from County Road 314 to 314A was funded for right-of-way with funding coming from Senate Bill 100, which is very important. The River to Sea TPO, I-95 interchange at US 1 was a major project with construction proposed in 2027. And I-95 interchange at Pioneer Trail was also a big project. And again, many of these projects, were funded through Moving Florida Forward. And again, we're just very hopeful that these projects get approved by the legislature. So more good news for our region's priorities. The governor signed Senate Bill 106, which increases the funding for the Sun Trails Network from 25 million to 50 million annually beginning in fiscal year 23-24. And this is great news for filling in specifically the coast to coast trail gaps. And I wanted to touch, moving on to member projects or earmarks, because this could potentially affect our project priorities, whether we're talking about our individual lists or our regional projects. According to the last figures, the list of member projects is totaling 900 million in the Senate and 1.4 billion in the House. Of course, not all of this has made it to the appropriations bill. And as we move into the second half of session, this may change. But this is something that we definitely need to be aware of, because generally at the state level, when transportation projects are earmarked, it first comes out of MPO funding. And when you prioritize your projects, each one of the MPOs goes through this prioritization process. You rank them by significance. And so the earmark process really supplants this. It really circumvents the MPO process. So when it goes to the governor's desk, he has line item veto authority, and he has certainly that quite liberally. And so if a project gets vetoed, it doesn't go back to the MPO. It goes to other areas of the state. We know that resources are limited, and we understand that, looking for money is really important when it comes to transportation. But this past year was the only year that they used the excess funds or surplus funds for transportation. It was unprecedented. And, we won't know whether that's going to happen again until the end of session. So you may be jeopardizing projects that are already programmed. And so I just share this generally because our project priorities are very important to us, and we need to be aware of it. It's always a good idea to know the rules of the game, because it might be coming out of our own hides, so to speak. So we need to be careful. And so over the coming months, we will develop our individual prioritization lists and update the new funding, and that we'll go through that process. We will understand the outcome of the Moving Florida Forward projects. And typically during the months of June and July, each MPO will adopt their individual lists. And these are the proposed dates that we have coming up. And once each MPO has taken action and transmitted the list to FDOT, then we work together to merge the list. Are there any new projects that we need to add? And the final list will be adopted by the Alliance at the October 13th meeting when we meet next. And we will dig into those projects in a little bit more detail. And that's all I have for you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do I have any questions for Georgiana? Okay, Mr. Cordick?
Thank you. Ryan Kordick with the Polk TPO. I look at the list and I look at the counties, and I know District 1 Polk TPO, we're in a different FDOT district, but I'm sitting here next to my commissioners, and we were all talking about our ride in this morning. I'd be remiss if I didn't express our interest at a minimum in trying to get some candidate regional priorities from Polk County and District 1 included in this list. Our priority process is very similar to the MPOs listed there, and we wouldn't have any trouble coming up with some candidate projects. Again, I realize it might be a little bit separate from District 5 and what you all typically do, but again, there'd be an interest, I think, from Polk County in providing some regional priorities, certainly by October 13th. That's, I guess, a request from Polk TPO. We have that interest. So.
Very good. And I'll reach out to Parag and chat with him as well. And we will make sure that we are all in the loop here as a regional alliance.
Very good. Anyone else?
Madam
I-
Chair, not a question, but I just want to call attention to the item that was on your agenda at the last meeting, the regional TISMO master plan, and it's still under development. And remember that Eric came back to us last month and last meeting and noted that there need to be some more work on the development of that list. So we're expecting that in October, we'll have that list as well.
Okay, I have a question for you. You mentioned the additional funding for trails and then the gaps with the coast to coast. So are you, at what point are you expecting that we'll see some expediting of some of these gaps under the coast to coast with this additional funding?
I know FDOT District 5 reached out to our TPO to look at the priority list. You know, what projects do you have ready? And so I am assuming that they've done that with all the districts. And then again, we have our regional list. You know, we have a very dynamic list with all of the trails that we have on there. And so I know that the department is looking at that. And we'll have that to understand what they can move forward to fill in those gaps. So they'll be working with the individual MPOs to do that.
Well, that's good news. I know the State Bike Association is doing a coast to coast ride over Mother's Day weekend. I'm not quite sure how they picked that date, and they'll be coming right through my district, and we were looking forward to welcoming them, but I don't know about on Mother's Day. Anyway, okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions for Georgiana? Any more? Okay, thank you so
you.
much. All right, Mr. Trogger, I guess you are up next with the status updates on the 2045 CFMPOA LRTP and the regional indicators report. Mr. Trogger.
Good morning, everyone. In April, or your meeting prior, I was supposed to provide a status update and wasn't well that day. So thanks for letting me come back today and talk about the work that we put together. Really two products that I'm going to talk about, products that the Alliance has prepared as a region. And I'm going to walk through those today. And then after the meeting, we'll share the updated hyperlinks and documents, and I'll have the executive directors transmit these out for your and your other board's review. So the first document, or what we call the first product, is our regional indicators report. So this is the Alliance's Tracking the Trends document. It looks at who we are as a region, as a population, demographics, as you can see in the area profile. Chapter 2 looks at our assets. We're really unique, especially our Space Coast, with having that launch capacity. So truly a multimodal region. So that covers both the assets and the performance of that key critical infrastructure. And then chapter 3 looks at the region comprehensively and looks at what we have in common, what are our shared interests, what are we all sharing, what are we all up against. So we cover a couple topics that each of us and each of our boards, each of our communities will be addressing in the coming years. And that's unique to each community. And the second product, so this is before I move on, this is a paper product. It's a PDF document and covers a lot of different stats and statistics, some from FDOT Sourcebook, other from really a variety of sources. It's intended to be a compilation collection document, put all those sources on one page, one document. So again, with that, we'll be transmitting that to each of you after today's meeting. So be on the lookout for that from your executive director. The second product is something that we had done in the past, paper as an executive summary. This time around, we opted, kind of leaned into some of our online products. So what we did is take 6 of our long range plans and we combined them really online. We each adopted 2045 long range plans. between the years of 2019 and 2020. Each MPO has their own adoption cycle, but we looked at those key priorities and we prepared an online story map. There's some dynamic options, which I'm actually going to click into now. If we could, Lisa, kind of give I have a better prop than what's on this slide. So I'll give Lisa a second to drag that over. And I'll just tease you through this, knowing that, again, we're polishing it up and you'll get this hyperlink sent out to you sometime early next week. But again, this is an online map, so you'll get a hyperlink. We cover about the Alliance, who we are, what we do, what we all have in common, what was identified, those key threads across all of our adopted regional plans. So we did that comparative kind of meta-analysis, looking at all of our plans. So we have about the Alliance. I don't want to talk too much about. We were exploring the region. So you have some dynamic maps, partner snapshots for each of our MPO partners. So you can kind of zoom in. It has hyperlinks to your individual websites as well. Looking at regional infrastructure and putting that on a printed map is very challenging when you're looking at the study area that we have. So again, the power of these online products will really allow you to look at it as a super region, but also zoom into your particular community as well, just to kind of see how things go from up to down. As I mentioned, all of the maps that you'll find here are dynamic, so you can click in, zoom in and out. We have a lot of, again, statistics coming from a variety of sources. Again, we talk about key issues unique to our region. And then we talk trends. Where are we growing? How are we growing? In what areas specifically? So again, you can click into the data here, explore it regionally, explore it based on your municipality. You'll see uses across the board. But we also call attention to some of the criticalness of some of our key facilities, but also the magnitude of some of the major municipalities in our region. And then again, we're looking to 2045 and some other options. But as I mentioned, there is some dynamic maps here. So you can look at past and or historic and current crash data as well, all at a regional level. So where are those hotspots happening? So take a look at that. Again, we cover a lot of different ground here because our region is diverse. But I'll leave it at that because I just wanted to tease you with it. But this also includes the compilation of all of our cost feasible projects and needs all in one place online. So we've taken the time to look at everyone's GIS line work. It's kind of plannery technical talk, but it's how we make all of these maps. And we've refined them so they all match similar terminology. So that's something that we're also going to be delivering back to each of the agencies as these updated networks. And I have some notes along the way that we'll be sharing to each agency about some process improvements, how we can make this better, even better in the future. So with that, that's our two Alliance projects. One, our regional indicators report, which again is a tracking the trends document. In this document here, which is our long range plan compilation document, looks at all of our projects. And again, I'll let you spend some time zooming in and out and kind of familiarizing yourself. And if you have questions, you can certainly reach out on that one. So let me pop that back. So that's before I talk about any other topics, I will give this back to Lisa before I break anything. And answer any questions you may have in regards to our two projects. Again, the regional indicators report and the Alliance's long range plan summary.
Okay, any questions? All right, Mr. Baums.
It's not really a question. I just want to thank you, Alex, and Metro Planning, Gary, and your team. This is a fantastic resource. I dug through the draft and I know I was corresponding with your team on this, and I know there's a lot of hard work that goes into this, resources and time. So thank you very much. This is fabulous.
It truly is. Anyone else? Okay, and I guess Alex, you're up again with getting a head start, the potential impacts of the census and the or TPO's urban area boundaries.
And you really summarized it, so I can probably just kind of take a seat, but that's really the intent of today's discussion is we've all received preliminary information from the United States Census Bureau, as well as some planning tools that the Florida Department of Transportation has recently provided us, which is going to allow us to explore the topic of the 2020 census and what that means unique to each of our MPOs. And as a region. So in a nutshell, without going too much into a statistical analysis of the 2020 census and American Community Survey, a lot of growth. We talk about that in our long range plans. We see that year to year as we see the Bieber estimates and other annual calculations. But look, going from 2010 to 2020, it's really following in line with our long range trajectory. So that's good news to the planning process. I know for the Metro Plan Orlando area, we're looking at almost 1,500 people a week joining our community. So that does get us to that, over 2 million of growth by 2045. So again, as we look at some of these interim census and counting activities, it really helps us reflect on our planning processes and to, are our projections and forecasts in the right, falling in the right direction. And that's where there is truth to it. Similarly, and this is across the state, but also across the United States, rising urban populations. So we're growing, people are migrating, a lot of population growth, but people are returning to urban centers. We are seeing concentrations of growth to existing centers, but also new urban areas. So there's been a lot of growth, a lot of development, especially in Florida over the past decade. So we're seeing that. We had it in our plans, in our long range plans. Local governments have been approving this through permitting and land development over the past decade. And now we're seeing these concentrations come to fruition, both in population, but also as it relates to housing density, especially how the census looks at it. So we have some new urban areas as well. We have a new TMA actually in our study area. And what that really means is an urbanized area with a population greater than 200,000. The Deltona area, just like 210,000. So it triggers that new TMA. So that's good news, certainly for Volusia County. And something else you'll see as you look, especially at this Florida map and some of the latter maps that I have in my presentation, you'll see that we're growing together. In 2010, we started, we were a little less together. There were still some urban areas and clusters, but you'll start to see, especially as I show some of the maps on the latter slides, where some of these urban areas we're growing more contiguous along critical corridors. So that's just, I would say, a key reflection from the census and what we're seeing and what we'll be addressing in the coming months. So again, our friends at the Florida DOT recently prepared a couple of web map tools that will allow us to delve into the data at a statewide, but also for each MPO area. On the right, on the left, you'll see the 2010 urbanized areas as they are approved. And then on the right, you're going to see the preliminary urbanized areas. So this is what came out of the United States Census data. And looking at the schedule, we should have we'll call it a smooth urbanized areas from Federal Highway Administration later this summer. So May, June, we're waiting for that. So some of my presentation is somewhat speculative, knowing that some of these that there may be change tomorrow, and some of these lines may be refined in later weeks by the Federal Highway Administration. But for purposes of today's discussion and as staff, as we're preparing for this, we're keeping in mind what's the latest data out there. So as you can see, blue became, and I hate the color blind anyone in the room, I apologize, the darkest of magentas. And then you'll see the lighter red on the 2020 preliminary. Those are the new areas. So that's when you kind of blend red and blue become, it's kind of, we'll go back to art class, but nonetheless, when you see those three yellow boxes, those are really where those are really new growth areas. And starting from the south and going northwest, we have the Point Siena community that straddles Osceola and Polk County. As you look at the 2010 map, that was just an urban cluster. It was starting to flourish, and obviously in the past 10 years, it's grown and felt the pains of that growth. So that's really popped up on the map. Similarly, the Four Corners area, Lake County, Polk County, Orange County, it's kind of grown in all three areas, especially in Lake and Polk counties along the US 301 or 27 corridor, excuse me. And then as we go northwest, in Lake County as well, you have Wildwood, a new urbanized area, as well as I believe it's Marion Oaks in Marion County. So it just kind of triggered with the new census, with the census's determination, looking at household density as really the proxy for establishing urbanized areas. This is what we're seeing. That being said, again, in the coming weeks and hopefully by the end of the summer, we'll be receiving a new map set, new tables, new data from the Federal Highway Administration, which really will allow us to have a much more thorough, detailed discussion about what this really means, because some of these lines, again, will be consolidated, refined, smoothed in some cases. And I don't want to speculate too much about how that would be done. So with that being said, what does this mean, absent the uncertainty of how that map may change, to Florida's 27 MPOs? We don't see a new MPO in Florida. Other states across the United States will likely see some new MPOs. In Florida, not the case. We have new urbanized areas, new TMAs in the state of Florida, which means new and concentrated federal funds to those areas in some cases. But what every MPO has to consider, no matter what, are your urban area boundaries. So that's part of the discussion that's up in the air pending the Federal Highway Administration's proposition that they'll be coming out with this summer. We have our metropolitan planning areas. And I don't want to get too into the complications of this today, but a great example of an urban boundary difference between a metropolitan planning area is Metro Plan Orlando has the urbanized areas of the Orlando urbanized area and the Kissimmee urbanized areas. But we also have and that's our urban boundaries, two urbanized contiguous areas, but our metropolitan planning areas, Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties. So it's how money and some federal funds are generated and distributed, but for without getting into the weeds today, that's how those two, but they have to be decided at this 10-year mark. Even though that they're different, we come to terms on those unique differences. And all of this relates to board apportionment. What that study area looks like changes the composition of the board. At a minimum, we have to look at population requirements for major cities to make sure, because there is federal rulemaking, there are federal laws in regards to how the board must be apportioned. So we'll be looking at those population, it's 50,000 or greater, a city has to be represented on a board. So with that, there's automatic triggers, but there's other considerations that each MPO uniquely, individually will have to take over the coming months. So this is more of a heads up, put it on your radar presentation, knowing that each of your executive directors will be having one-on-one discussions with your executive committees and boards in the coming months. So again, Federal Highway Administration is going to be coming back with some updated urbanized areas, which we won't call preliminary. They'll be more of the proposed from the Federal Highway Administration. And that will allow us to have more thoughtful, detailed, practical discussion about what that means for each of us. But stay tuned for more. We wanted to put it on your radar. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to field those today, but I may suggest you speak directly to your executive directors if you have very kind of MPO centric questions. So anywho, thank you, Commissioner Moore, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you, Alex. They're very interesting. Any questions for Mr. Trauger? It means you must have presented and we all understood every bit of it. Yes. Oh, good, wonderful.
I just want to emphasize the importance of this and you will all be hearing from your executive directors, but the importance of bringing this to your attention today and actually getting ahead of us actually receiving the final data that we'll be basing this on is because we all have to have our reapportionment plans to DOT. I believe the latest is in October, November, certainly. And I'm not sure of the schedules for other MPOs across our region, but during that time, MetroPlan Orlando misses two board meetings. So that cuts into our ability to get this done, and it all needs to be done and packaged up to DOT like in October. So it's very important.
Yes, do you have any indication of which areas have a few cities that might be hitting that 50,000 threshold?
I've not looked through the entire region. I know that MetroPlan Orlando has one city that will be coming on to the board as a result of that 50,000 threshold, St. Cloud.
Okay. Very good, very good. Okay, well, thank you so much, Mr. Crocker. Oh, question down here, Mr. Shields.
So is the Four Corners, it's in my district, Lake County. And so I'd be remiss not to just, since we're talking about roads and transportation, we've been trying to connect east-west connectors. There's like 3 in the pipeline between Lake County. There's not 90,000 people, right, heading east on 192. That's their only way to get to Disney Orlando right now, or they got to go 12 miles north to Hartwood Marsh, whatever it is, and go in that way. And I hear from constituents constantly, 27 gets jammed up for whatever reason. They got to go Avalon all the way around, another hour to get home, right, for 3 miles of, road that they would normally need. So we've got all these east-west. There's Fleming to Sawgrass. There's the new toll road going in from Lake Louisa east. And there's what's the other one? We're trying to get done, but it's a cooperation between Lake County and Orange County, to get that done. And so just want to throw that out there. Yeah, Sawgrass. Yeah. So just want to throw that out there. Anything we can help to move those projects up, because we've got exploding growth and, circular driving to get east.
Mr. Shields, you're aware of CFX with the
Yes.
Lake Orange Road, and so I know that's coming in the next few years, so hopefully that'll help.
That'll help a lot.
Yeah, very good. All right, does anyone want to respond to Mr. Shields? Okay, all right, thank you. Any member comments? Yes, Georgiana.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wanted to inform the Alliance members that our governing board supports the development and implementation of an intermodal station, a Brightline station in the Cocoa area. And so we submitted an application to the FDOT Intermodal Office for the grant program to do a feasibility study, because that is going to be the very first step. And we received notification that we did get the award. And it's for $329,510. We developed a scope. And so we're looking forward to working along with our Brightline partners and our local governments to look at the feasibility and to kind of dig into those details a little more. We think it's very important that we get a station in Brevard County for the region. And we have a lot of work to do. To assist in that process, we did develop a regional intermodal connections committee, which is a very diverse group of stakeholders, from the chambers, the Tourism Development Council, the EDC, to have everyone at the table, our county commissioner and of course our chair, to make sure that we're all moving in the same direction, that we're talking to each other and building partnerships, talk about funding partnerships and how to build those connections, which is so important. It's It's about the modal connections, not only locally to the destinations, but regionally. And so we have a lot of work to do, but we were very excited and looking forward to that work over the coming year.
Very good. So you're having bright line conversations like we have over here as well. All right, any other public comments? Anything you'd like to share, members like to share with the rest of the board? They are quiet today. Lorena, is there anything we can do to help get that additional several $billions? Because I was concerned, particularly for Polk, what you think with the reduction in the budget would do to any of our I-4 improvements.
Getting to the legislature and the folks that are pushing those through. I think, did Metro Plan send a letter in support of the project? So some things like that might be helpful so that they know that people are watching and want these projects.
And so will that be impacted if it is reduced, the funding is reduced to 2 billion? And will they just stick with the top priorities and lose the ones at the bottom, or how do you see that?
I don't know how that's gonna play out. You know, there's 20 projects around the state and not sure which ones would fall off. So.
Well, that's definitely a concern for us members to continue to keep that funding.
But for clarification, Lorraine, the list of projects, the list of 20 is not in a priority order, is it?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
So we really don't know.
no.
Okay, all right.
I'm-
Yes, Mr. Woods.
I just wanted to comment on Senate Bill 106, the SunTrail dollars, 50 million a year now, but there's also a one-time allocation of $200 million to help with filling the gaps up. So it's really a historic bill for Central Florida, and coast to coast, and all of our work on SunTrail.
Yes. So I'm assuming you'll be working on some of your gap. You have gaps too, just
Yeah,
like we have.
we have the largest gaps.
You have large gaps. Well, let's hope that money goes that direction. All right. Anyone else? Okay. Miss Kathy, is there anyone online who would like to comment on any of our action items, which happen to just be the minutes, but
There are no hands raised on the virtual side, Madam Chair.
okay. How about, were any submitted by email or phone, Virginia?
We did not receive any, Madam Chair.
Okay, so with that, I just really need to let you know when the next meeting is, and it's about 6 months away. October 13th, 2023, 10 a.m. here at Metro Plan Orlando, 250 South Orange Avenue, Suite 200. And of course, that's Orlando. And if there's no other business before us today, we're adjourned.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair.
That went pretty easy.
Yeah.